Greetings, comic book friends. Welcome to a little bit different video. I'm going to do a tier list. I may be the only person brave enough to tackle this tier list that is covering the Dark Ages of comics. So what is the Dark Ages of comics? Well, it kind of depends who you ask. I have my own sort of view of it. I've read articles on it. I've gone to Wikipedia. I don't agree with what Wikipedia says. Wikipedia seems to suggest that the modern age and dark age are synonymous. I don't agree with that. I think the dark age is a part of modern age, a subset of modern age, specifically in that time of the late 80s to mid to late 90s. So part of the modern age, very early part of the modern age, the dark part of it, why it's called the Dark Ages, there's a couple reasons for it. One, it's when comics kind of went through a phase of being dark and gritty. As we'll see on some of the choices here, your Dark Knight Returns and things like that. And just in general, comics took a little bit more, a little bit darker turn. I refer to them as the Dark Ages because it's the time where things were bad. You don't want to think about it. You don't want to remember it. Either one, I think, kind of works. But and I think we'll see a little bit of both on this list. So, as you know, I pick up a lot of runs of stuff. And a lot of the Dark Age stuff is actually not too hard to complete because there's few keys in it. Again, it was a rough time. Not a lot of great stuff came out of it. And some of those series just aren't real super popular. So it's easy to collect those runs. And then when I collect them, when I finish them, I read them. So I have a little bit of a diversity of stuff here. I only want to rank stuff that I've read. And you'll see it's probably Marvel heavy. There's only one DC book in here, a proper DC book, aside from Vertigo, just because I like Marvel better, and I've read that. There's some fringe Dark Age stuff I consider putting on here just to bolster up the DC a little bit. Blue Beetle and Booster Gold, I have both of those. I've read both of those, but I think they came out a little bit before what we call the Dark Age. So. Also, this is the time when I first started getting into comics, and I only did Marvel at that time, so I have memories of Sleepwalker and Deathlock and Darkhawk because that's what I read back then. So that's what I decided to collect more recently because I wanted to get stuff that I had a connection to. So it's a rough time. I made sure I put in some. Even though there's not a lot of DC, I did try to put in some variety there, right? I do have some Vertigo stuff in there, which happened during that time. So we have our Sandman, Preacher, Transmet. I had Hellblazer. I'm not sure where Hellblazer went. I lost it. I also lost that image. Hellblazer was in here. And there are some minis. I try to stay away from a lot of minis. The Venom Lethal Protector here, I'm having be a stand-in for all Venom minis. There were like 20 Venom minis during the Dark Age. Also, Aliens. I have this as a stand-in for Aliens, Predator, and Aliens vs. Predator minis. And then they some were better than others, but they all kind of had the same sort of feel to them. But there's a couple significant minis that I have on here. Or same with Death's Head. I have that as stand-in for Death's Head 1, 2, and 3. But Dark Knight Returns, I think, is a significant mini to have in there. Future Imperfect, I think, was significant, if anything, because it's my favorite Hulk story. Some other stuff that again, it ended up on the fringe, like Watchmen, V for Vendetta. We're a little early for what I consider the Dark Age. But then I also have something here like ElfQuest, where the beginning of ElfQuest was before the Dark Age, but the majority of it happened during the Dark Age, so I went ahead and put it in there, and mostly for variety and have some fun stuff in there. This What If 105, I'm having this was the first appearance of Spider-Girl. I'm having this be a stand-in for all of M2. So this is for Spider-Girl, J2, A-Next, Fantastic Five, all that M2 stuff. Alright, so the only thought that I put into this so far, before this moment, was in the selection. I haven't put any thought into where I wanted to put them. I think some are definitely easier than others. I think we can probably agree that some of these Vertigo series go pretty high. So I'm going to start with those there. I wish Hellblazer was here. I don't know where my Hellblazer went. Sandman is fantastic. Preacher is fantastic. Hellblazer is fantastic. Transmet is great, if anything, because it's as relevant today as it was then. So these are probably the easiest ones to sort of put in this area. It's definitely S or A. If Hellblazer was in here, I'd probably... And this is going to be relative, right? So if I put something in the S tier, that doesn't mean it's among my favorite comics of all time. It's relative to this set. Hellblazer would be an S tier for sure. No question. Hellblazer is so good. It just remained good throughout its long run. I would also put Transmet up there, just because of the commentary. And for now, I'm going to put Sandman and Preacher. I'm going to leave them in A. I don't give me a lot of flack for not putting those up there. I know they're very, very good. A is very, very good. It's just there's something about Hellblazer and Transmet put them a little bit ahead. If there was something in between S and A to make these higher, I would do it. But I have to put Transmet and Hellblazer a little bit above. So Transmet up there, Imagine Hellblazer there. Let's see. Oh, this is tough. Spoiler alert, this is going to be bottom heavy. I wonder if I should have put another rank in here. I feel like we need to go lower. So there's one of these that I haven't quite finished yet. I am 10 issues away from Mark Spector Moon Knight. But I get it. And this is in the bad of the bad. And a lot of that might be because I love Moon Knight so much, and I want it to be better. But it's not only that it's very bad, it's also just a disappointment because of what I really was hoping it would be. If there was ever any question where Moon Knight is just a knockoff Batman, it comes from this series because that's how it's treated. Everything that makes Moon Knight interesting is gone. His struggle with multiple personalities, his cast of backup characters is gutted. Frenchie is almost always there, but really just plays the role of Alfred. Marlene is sometimes there, but Crowley and Gina are not present at all. They show up in one issue, but they are only there as collateral damage. They aren't actually utilized. Instead, Moon Knight is more of a I have all these gadgets. I'm a rich person with gadgets. They treat him like a knockoff Batman, and that hurts. He gets like armor. It's just anything that makes Moon Knight interesting is gone. It's so bad, and not just that. On top of that, it's just 90s Dark Age bad. It's way too wordy. It's over explaining things that don't make sense. There's characters that say things for no reason just because they think it sounds cool. I thinking about this now again. I didn't want to put too much thought in it before I made this, just so it'd be all kind of off the cuff for the video. I probably should have made an F tier for Moon Knight to hold on its own. It's that bad. I'm also going to put, but since there's not, and I need that low tier, I'm also going to put Deathlock down there. The 90s Deathlock, the Dark Age Deathlock is not good. It is a tech-based character where the world in comics was still trying to figure technology out. Right, technology in the hands of the people was still sort of a new thing. This internet thing was weird. It was magic, and in comics, it was treated like magic. It was treated as if no one knows how it works, so we might as well just make it up. The whole people jumping into the internet and having bodies in the internet in the background is just like circuits. Like it makes no sense. It was a product of its time. I get it, and at the time, it was probably fine because people didn't know better. They probably knew that it wasn't like that, but they didn't know enough to say like how it should be. And it comes off being just really, really dated, really bad. On top of the same things I mentioned with Moon Knight. It's too wordy. Not that I have a problem with reading, obviously, but when there's a bunch of stuff that's thrown in there for the sake of it being in there and doesn't add to anything, in fact, it deters from it. Again, characters just saying stuff just to say it. Not adding to the character, not adding to the story. Just, oh, it'd be really quippy and cool if they said this. But it's not, so it actually makes things worse. All right, so let's get away from bad. I mean, we will come back to it, but let's look for some bright things. Let's look for some of this irreverent stuff. Milk and cheese. I love milk and cheese. I'm not putting in C. I'm just throwing it up there to look at it. It was 6 issues long. It was so this was from Slave Labor Comics. It is just goofy, over-the-top nonsense. It is overly violent. It is rude. It is raw. If you haven't read it, I suggest it. I know there is a hardcover collection of it. I don't know how hard that's to get these days, but it is out there. I highly suggest reading it. It is a lot of fun. I'm gonna put this at least B. God, I feel like I need more tiers. What does this do? I don't know if I want to click on that. Oh, it just moves things up. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I did things. I moved my tier. Oh, I see. It's moving the tiers around. Okay. All right. Like, I feel like it should be higher than B. At least this is the first time I've done a tier list, and whenever I've watched them, I'm like, how hard can it be? It's hard with just 5. I might have to move these up. These got to go up. Those got to go up because this has to go up, but it's not on the same tier as this. I guess we have to believe that, within S tier there would be their own tiers, but if we're going to generalize it into just 5 tiers, we have to do that. Along with that same sort of irreverent humor is Flaming Carrot. Again, it's something I would suggest you read. Not as easy to read. I don't know if this has ever been collected, or at least not anytime recently. And these issues are not easy to find these days. But I don't know. Most of them are standalone, so if you can find a handful of them just to read them, they're a lot of fun. If you don't know Flaming Carrot, I feel a deep connection with Flaming Carrot. I feel like every once in a while I'm going to turn into Flaming Carrot. His backstory is he was just a dude that read 5,000 comics in one sitting and just snapped and became like this wacky superhero of the Flaming Carrot, who has a giant carrot mask, has a flame on top. He wears swimming flippers, and it's just weirdness. Bob Burden, same guy who came up with Mystery Men. So if you're familiar with Mystery Men, and Mystery Men do show up in some issues of Flaming Carrot. All right, let's go. Let's find some middle tier stuff, just for some perspective, you know. I would think Venom minis are somewhere in the middle. If we are lumping all Venom minis together, some are better than others, so they kind of balance out. The early ones, like your Lethal Protector, was great. It really added to the story of Venom. But there are a lot of them that weren't super great. I think in the B, I'll leave it in B for now. It might change. But there are some good stuff in there. If anything, it's fun, right? Things can be bad, but still be fun. Mark Spector Moon Knight and Deathlock were bad and not fun. I'm having a real hard time finishing off Mark Spector Moon Knight because it is painful. It is painful, and I know I have better things to read, but I'm going to do it. This is why I say I'm the only person on the internet brave enough to do this, because I'm the only one that's crazy enough to read this crap. But we'll put it's Venom minis are bad, but they're fun. Darkhawk. See, Darkhawk's tough because it started off really good, but then got to Deathlock level of bad. The first 20 or so issues were really, really good, and then it got into techno nonsense, and it ruined it. It absolutely ruined it. But it was good for a while. I mean, again, when I say good in this sense, good as in bad but fun. If we're talking about bad but fun, I'd put M2 along with Venom minis. It's I don't know. It's so much fun. I like alternate universe stuff. That definitely helps with it. You know, personally, it never really got into the heavy 90s techno stuff or like overbulked characters or women that were just completely physiologically impossible. I mean, it's comics; they're all physiologically impossible, but you know that they look unhealthy. It looks like their back is broken, sort of female figures that you'd really see in the 90s. Like this is getting into 2000s, but one of the biggest offenders is a little bit after the Dark Ages. You know, Michael Turner, like his Fathom and whatnot. Like backs don't work like that. You know, spines don't work like that. It's really bad. None of the Liefeld extra pouches and chest, male chests popping out. You know, that infamous Captain America image. But it never fell into that, which was surprising. But this is also a little bit later. I think this is later in the Dark Ages, so I think they kind of got it out of their system by then. Dark Knight Returns. I mean, Dark Knight Returns is good. It's good. It's a reason that it keeps getting brought up and people come back to it. And the story gets reused, or elements of the story gets reused in a lot of things. It's because it's so good. So yeah, I'm gonna put it up in A tier. Aliens. This is for Aliens, Predator, and Aliens versus Predator, all that Dark Horse stuff. This definitely falls in so bad it's good. Not so bad it's good, but bad but fun. But it's not as good as these, or as fun as those. Like, it's fun. I enjoy reading them, and I will keep reading them. This is getting where it's hard. I would continue to read more of these miniseries, but I would enjoy to read more of these miniseries, but I would not enjoy to read more Darkhawk. So it seems weird to have them on the same tier, but so maybe it does belong more up here. But at the same time, it's like these aren't. It's not as good as these. I'm going to put it there. I'm going to put it there just because it's more good than Dark. Well, nah, C's probably fine for now. Sleepwalker falls right in there. It's probably a little better than Darkhawk. It like Darkhawk, it started off better than it ended, but it didn't dissolve into de-evolve into a bunch of techno nonsense. I don't think. But the character's not as cool as Darkhawk, so I feel this is probably fair. Let's see. Kingdom Come. I'm gonna put it up there. Again, don't get too hung up about things being on the same tier. It's probably not as good as Dark Knight Returns, but it's definitely good. Right? It's better than Venom Minis. It's actually good. It is. Again, it's in the future / alternate universe, or it spawned an alternate universe. As far as DC wide stories go, it's my favorite. So I'm gonna put it in A. Let's see. I'm gonna put Future Imperfect up there as well. It's that good. I think Future Imperfect deserves to be up with. It doesn't get as much critical acclaim, definitely, as The Dark Knight Returns or even Kingdom Come, but personally, I think it is as good of a story and written just as well. All right. Death's Head, I'd put there in the middle. And it's weird, it's fun. It fits alongside, I think, Venom, where it's good in its way. I would read more of it. Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Let's see, this one. So this is Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. And I wanted a little bit of diversity in here, and this is kind of standing for. There were three Dungeons and Dragons books that came out. They were put out by DC around this time: Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, Forgotten Realms, and I can't remember what the third one is off the top of my head. Shoot. What was that? What were their titles? What were those titles? DC. Oh, DC is something else. Or Dragonlance. Duh. And Dragonlance. Okay. Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, Dragonlance, and Forgotten Realms. They're actually a lot of fun. They take place outside of the superhero stuff, so it didn't really feel like they were forced to do that sort of thing that superhero comics were doing, that super beef dudes and over the top extreme sort of stuff. It was just good. I'm gonna put it there, and I mean it's not as good as this stuff up here, but it's genuinely good, not bad but fun to read, like some of the Venom minis. It was genuinely good, but not as good as this stuff up here. Spider-Man 2099. Look. I'm surprised as you all are. Spider-Man 2099 is freaking great. It's so good. I did not expect it to be. I did not expect to like it. I did not expect it to be any sort of actually good. I expected to have fun with it. Kind of like, your dark. Like I had some fun with Darkhawk and Sleepwalker. But so I kind of expected before going into it. I thought it probably would have landed along with these folks. Man, I'll tell you what. Right up there. So Warlock and the Infinity Watch. I love Infinity. I'm torn between B and C. Like I recognize that it is not real good, but I did enjoy it. It was nice. It stood apart from a lot of the Marvel Universe. It was really just about the stones and the Infinity Watch. But it wasn't as sort of actually good as M2 or those. I'm gonna put it in C. It's a high C, if anything. Let's see. ElfQuest. I think I've talked about ElfQuest before, and I'll say it here again. ElfQuest I think it's a bad rap. Now, I think a lot of the concerns and criticisms with it aren't unfounded. And I understand at a glance, it looks how it looks. It's like weird, short, sexy elves. And when you see something like that, I think the assumption is that that's all that it is. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong. It is short, sexy elves, and there's probably some section of people that are into that for it being short, sexy elves, and that's fine for them. However, you can't let that deter you from what else is actually there, right? This is coming back to don't judge a book by its cover. If you judge this by its cover, by a glance, you will think it's nothing but like weird elf porn. And I mean, it's not. I mean, it's not that. There's like no actual nudity in it, or like actual sex or anything. It is clear that these elves do have sex. It is that is clear, but it's not actually explicit. But that's very surface level. Underneath all of that, at its core, it's a really, really good fantasy story. There's a lot of really interesting characters, good character development. The stories themselves are very well thought out. I will never not promote ElfQuest. If anything, because of the bad rap that I think it gets, and it's undeserved. So ElfQuest is at least B. I kind of want to put it in A, but man, if I have Spider-Man 2099 in A, I mean, ElfQuest is... Spider-Man 2099 is good for being Dark Age superhero. Like, the fact that this is the only, like, ongoing superhero book that I have in A is really saying something for Spider-Man 2099. But as far as being, like, an actual good story, I can't say that ElfQuest is worse. I'm going to put it in A. ElfQuest is good. And if you think I'm a weirdo for it, then so be it. But ElfQuest is good. What we got left? We got our wet boys, our watery boys, Namor and Aquaman. Namor is either B or C. It's probably going to have to go C because it's similar to Darkhawk and Sleepwalker, where it started off good. Like, it started off really good. And then at some point, a switch flipped, and it went full-on 90s mode. And it just... all the goodwill it had created at the beginning just kind of went away. It went Savage Namor. Like, you know, the name of it changed to Savage Namor. Like, the actual title didn't change to Savage, but they started putting Savage on the cover. And this hurts me because you know how much I love Namor. I like Namor as a character more than Sleepwalker and Darkhawk, so that makes me want to put it up more. But as far as a book is concerned, it's similar to Darkhawk and Sleepwalker in that it starts strong and then it starts to get tough. Aquaman, this is probably another surprise. I got to put it in A tier. If Spider-Man 2099 is an A tier, Aquaman is an A tier. And we're going to... For those of you that know, there is a connection here, right? Spider-Man 2099 and Aquaman, the two superhero ongoings that are up here, both written by Peter David. I think... So all of the other superhero ongoings are C or lower, or C or D, right? These are all low. So what can we learn from this? We learned that, as a general rule, stay away from Dark Horse superhero ongoings unless they are written by Peter David. Like, Peter David has something, like, he is immune. He was immune to the 90s garbage where, like, he saw what was going on and was like, nah, I'm not going to do that. That's dumb. Even in Spider-Man 2099, where it takes place in the future, right, you would expect it to be, if anything, at least as prey to techno nonsense as Deathlock. And don't get me wrong, it's in there a little bit, but nowhere near to the degree and as often. I mean, Future Imperfect, I mean, that's Peter David as well. But here you could have superhero one-offs, as we can see, these special sort of Elseworlds style stories in the Dark Age and come out on the other end okay. It's these ongoings where they say, I gotta come up with content. These Dark Knight Returns, Kingdom Come, Future Imperfect, they had a story to tell. They told them they were out. Ongoings, it's a little harder to do because you have to keep going for 30, 40, 50, 60 or more issues. It's easier to fall prey to just starting to go bad. You run out of your original ideas and things don't go well. So what do we see here? So I think there is a lot to be learned. There we ended up with more in the S and A, like these upper tiers, than I thought. But again, you can see patterns, right? Generally speaking, your superhero fare of ongoing is crap. And I think that as a general rule, that is true. You get to the things that are just absolute garbage. Just take my word for it, please. Do yourself the service and don't even try reading these. Not even as it'll be funny as I read. It wouldn't be. It's not. It's not. It's a waste of time. It's a complete waste of time. And I wasted my time so you wouldn't have to. Don't bother. Then you have your C tier, which is like get the first 10, 20 issues, get the gist of the character, and you're good. Stop there. You'll make some good memories out of it. It'll be fun. Especially with like Darkhawk and Sleepwalker, where this is their origin, right? The number ones are their first appearances. So you can learn a little bit about those characters. Like Darkhawk, for example, in the end, they completely change what his origin is, or what you think his origin is, and it's not good. It's not good. Read the first handful of Darkhawk issues and stop, even if it's in the middle of an arc, with you thinking you know what Darkhawk's origin is, and be blissfully ignorant, because you don't want to know what it actually is. It's bad. But yeah, generally speaking, superhero ongoings during the Dark Age, stay away from them. Or at least, as I say, just kind of play with the beginnings of them. Things like minis, even sets of minis, right? And this kind of makes me want to put this up here. Sort of like when I'm talking about with these A tier minis, they're okay because they have a focused story and they're done. And it's the same even with these minis that aren't quite as good. At least they tell a story and they know when to get out. They're not trying to keep it going on and on again. Though the Venom minis, you could kind of view those as a Venom ongoing, where each set of 4, 5, or 6 is an arc. But at least it has like a focused, I'm telling the story and then that's it. And some things they continue on from one mini to the next, like it kind of like it is an ongoing. It just, I don't know, I guess it pulls it off a little bit better. God, Aliens is not as good as M2. I gotta keep that down there. But in Death's Head, those are minis. Those were fun. Like, these are actually kind of funny. Um, the Dungeons and Dragons stuff I put in there just for some diversity. So even if it's like in this case it's DC, if it steps outside of the superhero universe, usually it's kind of okay. You don't feel like, or it doesn't feel like it's trying to do the same thing that all the other superhero books are doing. Then when we get up here, and we definitely learn things, right? And these two anomalies. It's the Peter David factor, the Peter David anomaly, the Peter David whatever. He gets a pass for whatever reason. He stayed good. He resisted. But then you get your sort of prestige, the dark age, right? Your Dark Knight Returns. Kingdom Come was dark. Future Imperfect was dark. But those are good, so feel free to jump into those. Then we get into indies. I also probably could have put Cerebus in this, even though Cerebus, probably kind of like ElfQuest, it started before the Dark Ages hit, but definitely went through the Dark Ages. But I probably haven't read enough of Cerebus to fully rank it, because I am told it goes completely off the rails later on. So probably good I didn't put it on here, since I don't have the full Dark Age experience with it. These sort of nonsense, there was a lot of this sort of stuff during that time. I also probably could have put Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in here. Started in '84, but went through the Dark Ages. In which case, it'd probably land up in this A tier as well. But the indie stuff, this was like when indies were becoming, I guess, less indie. There was always indie comics where like you really like private publishers sort of stuff. These things you could at least find on the shelves. They usually didn't order a lot, or you had to special order them, but you could get them at your comic shops, or their comic shops could order it through sort of normal means. Which, going back to like the 60s and 70s, there were independent comics, but they were a lot more obscure than these are. And if you think things like Flaming Carrot are obscure, there were crazy weird stuff before that. In this I was able to collect a full run of Flaming Carrot. It took some time because there's not a lot out there, but it was possible. Some of the indie stuff from before, I have a bunch of these Yellow Dog books. Well, they're not books. They came as newspapers. Like that's independent stuff, right? Where their print run is like in the hundreds. But we do start to see the emergence of stuff outside of your Marvel and DC. Things like ElfQuest and Flaming Carrot and Milk and Cheese. We get Johnny the Homicidal Maniac and other stuff like that. And a lot of stuff is good. And you can count on most of that being good, or at least being a worthwhile read, because if you've heard of it, then it's probably at least decent, right? Because it had to break through that indie barrier to get some sort of recognition. So I think those things are pretty safe. But then as to like, this is, Hellblazer would be up here too. This is like the prime Vertigo time, right? Sandman, Hellblazer, Preacher, Transmet, like that is clearly made for adults. The themes would be way over the head of the kids that were being targeted for your Darkhawks and Sleepwalkers and Venoms and whatnot. Definitely a darker tone because it was towards a more mature audience that could handle that and appreciated that. It also was the 90s comics, so darker was generally a trend. But this was the glory time for Vertigo. Not that there weren't other Vertigo stuff later on, you know, Why the Last Man and Fables and all that stuff is all really good, but you're not gonna beat this lineup. It's not possible. So I think that's it. I think this is my list. I think we came out ahead on this. I think we came out learning a lot more than I thought. I really thought it was going to be heavy in the C and D tier, just by the general premise of it. But there's some good stuff out there. There's some really good stuff, like super solid stuff. Anything that's an S and A tier, I 100% suggest reading. I think they're good reads that are well worth your time. Getting into B, this is getting into, it's not good. It's not necessarily good, but it's fun. So maybe this, if that sort of thing is something you like, then go for it. C and D, again, C, as I said, pick and choose, right? I mean, the Alien minis, you can read some of them, are fine. The superhero ongoings, they start okay, but very quickly kind of go bad. And then there's a lot of stuff like this that is just don't even bother. Just don't. There's a lot of stuff here that obviously isn't there. You know, there's a lot of Spider-Man stuff in the 90s. You know, you get your Clone Sagas and stuff like that. I wanted to stick with things that are completely encapsulated in, or mostly encapsulated in the 90s. Like, it's hard to do Spider-Man because Spider-Man went from the 60s up until now. But whereas, like, these runs are pretty solidly in the Dark Ages. Everything here is pretty solidly, like, began and ended in the Dark Ages. Maybe it bled a little bit before and after, but the bulk of it lands predominantly in the Dark Ages. I wanted to stick to that for this. So that's it. Let me know what you think. What books would you put on this list, and where would you put them? What tier would you put them in? Do you agree with or disagree with any of the choices that I've made? The places that I've put things. I'm curious to know what you all think out there. So do that, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, and of course, don't forget to make yours Titan. This video was brought to you by Titan Comic Pressing. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Titan Comic Pressing LLC.